characters in Star Wars. Three include Saw Gerrera, and I don't think nobody connect with that nigga. But in The Last Jedi, they completely throw my dog away. The only character that I connected with, they completely throw my dog away, and he's pretty much useless. And you're probably wondering why I'm saying it's useless. If you take the scenes with him and Rose completely out of the movie, nothing about the movie changes. Nothing. It's crazy.
Rey's trajectory was fairly well set by the templates of the original trilogy, because not only is she Luke Skywalker, but she also gets to spend a lot of both movies being Han Solo as well. Finn, by comparison, is a little harder to pin down, which is why, with the exception of Kylo Ren, he was the most interesting aspect of J.J. Abrams' remake of A New Hope. By contrast, The Last Jedi wasn't exactly a carbon copy, but nevertheless it did borrow heavily from both episodes 5 and 6, which ultimately meant that Johnson had to make an entirely different mini-movie so that he could find something for Finn to do. And this is by far his biggest mistake, because besides from derailing both plot and pacing, he threw away the character that is supposed to be at the very centre of the central story. Obviously, everyone has an opinion about how The Last Jedi could have been bettered, so I thought I'd have a shot at my very first fan fiction in an attempt to illustrate why it's such a shame about Finn. Narratively, I thought that his role in the first film most closely mirrored the story of the droids. Most obviously C-3PO's blunder and cowardice, but also R2-D2's plucky bravery and technical usefulness. Star Wars may ultimately be Luke Skywalker's story, but part of its charm, as Lucas intended, was that it was largely told from the perspective of the underclass in the guise of two lowly servant droids, who, by the way, no one so much as bats an eyelid when they are literally sold into bondage and made to do Master Luke's general bidding. The most interesting thing about Finn is his origin as a stormtrooper, and it made perfect sense to explore this further and use it as a device to drive on the central narrative. I didn't buy his attempt at a cowardly exit, because he'd already overcome this character flaw in the first movie, but what would have made more sense if instead his arc involved a more complex struggle to overcome the powerful conditioning he must have been subjected to as a child. Doing so could have set a path that could have potentially fixed so much that is so very wrong in this movie. Indeed, Finn could ultimately have served as the main MacGuffin and travelled all the more interesting a path for doing so. A path that could have helped fix a lot of supporting characters as well. The movie could have started as they originally intended, with the more stylized and satisfactorily Star Warsy opening that for some reason ended up on the cutting room floor. He could have been woken by Phasma's condition calling, having triggered some sort of stormtrooper chip in his brain, which could have established a more meaningful long distance back and forth than Rey and Kylo's Jedi Skype chats. Phasma could have compelled him to betray the location of the rebels after they had initially escaped the First Order's clutches in the opening scenes. This could have in turn led to a will-he-won't-he inner conflict, which would give him a more satisfactory reason for meeting Rose in the life pod bay. Perhaps he was trying to escape so that Phasma couldn't exploit him further, only for Rose to unwittingly stand in his way. In turn, she could have learned about his dilemma and agreed to help him get off the rebel ship before he caused more trouble or his betrayal was exposed. Perhaps she managed to convince him that he could redeem himself by helping her with his suicidal mission to sneak on board the head Star Destroyer and cause enough chaos to give the rebels time to escape. And maybe they get captured and used by Snoke to lure Rey to their rescue, a la Cloud City, and during their inevitable escape, Finn could face down Phasma, thus finally freeing himself from his bondage. But maybe Finn still feels guilty about betraying the Resistance, which drives him to make the ultimate sacrifice at the end, only to be saved by Rose, who, despite knowing the possible consequences for the besieged rebels, just can't help herself because of all that lovey-dovey stuff that they'd actually bothered to hint at earlier in the script. And maybe we don't go to that stupid casino planet at all, and maybe we save Benicio del Toro for an entirely different movie. And then maybe some sort of culturally insensitive cartoon stereotype of an Irishman could sweep in and save the day with his massive laser sword, and then get to have a go with the Millennium Falcon as well. Just a thought. Personally, I thought the How It Should Have Ended team pretty much nailed it, so maybe we could have ended things a little more like this.
What did you think was going to happen? That I would take on the First Order with nothing but a laser sword?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen.
That actually does sound pretty awesome. Okay, let's do it. This place is dead anyway.
I want every gun we have to fire on those two. Do it. That's impossible! He's never been seen having that force ability before.
Well, we have all seen you do that before, so it's not too crazy to think he can do this.
Shut up, Carl! Nobody asked you!
Now.
Bring me down. No! Come on!